Travis rocked Theo gently, his own throat raw from whispering pleas into the storm-slick night. "Sure, little man, it's okay. Daddy's here." But the words felt hollow, a script from a play he didn't believe in anymore. Harlan shifted, his gnarled hand reaching out as if to touch the baby, but it fell short, trembling in the air. Theo's cries sharpened, piercing, as if the child could sense the fracture in the room. The unspoken rift between the man who had built this house with calloused hands and the son-in-law he had barely acknowledged in life. It had been 3 months since Jude died. 3 months since the car accident on that slick stretch of I-5, when a semi-truck hydroplaned into the median and turned their world to wreckage. Jude Whitaker, with his easy laugh and ink-stained fingers from sketching blueprints for sustainable homes, gone in an instant. Travis had held on through the funeral, the casseroles from neighbors who whispered condolences behind lace curtains, the endless paperwork for custody of Theo, their miracle, conceived through a surrogate they had chosen together over late-night bottles of Pinot in their cramped Capitol Hill apartment. But now, with Harlan's cancer eating him from the inside out, the house felt like a tomb, and Theo's cries were the only proof that time hadn't stopped entirely. Travis sank onto the edge of the ottoman, his free hand brushing Harlan's knee. The old man had called him 2 weeks ago, voice crackling over the line like dry leaves. "Travis, I want to see the boy, before it's too late." It was the first time Harlan had spoken to him since the hospital, since the night Jude's machines flatlined and Harlan had stood in the hallway, fists clenched, muttering about fate's cruel jokes. Travis had wanted to scream then. Fate? What about the years of quiet tolerance? The sidelong glances at Jude's pride pins on the fridge, the way Harlan had never once said "I love you" to his only son. But grief is a thief, and Travis had swallowed it all, packing up Theo's diapers and bottles for the drive north to this rain-soaked relic of a home. Now, as Theo's wails crescendoed, Harlan's eyes focused, sharpening through the pain. "Give him here," he rasped, voice like gravel under tires. Travis hesitated, the air thick with the scent of impending rain and regret. He passed the baby over, watching as Harlan cradled Theo awkwardly, his arms too frail for the weight. The crying didn't stop. It grew frantic, as if Theo rejected the hands that had never held him before. Travis's heart twisted. He reached to take him back, but Harlan held firm, a spark of something fierce in his gaze. "Listen to me, boy," Harlan murmured, not to Theo, but to the empty space between them. "Your daddy, Jude, he was always too soft for this world. Like his mother." His voice cracked, and for the first time, Travis saw tears track down the old man's weathered cheeks, mingling with the sweat of fever. Theo's cries hitched, then softened to whimpers, as if the confession had cracked open a dam. Travis froze, the room tilting on its axis. Harlan had never spoken Jude's name without bitterness, never acknowledged the life his son had built with Travis, the life that included this child, this family forged in love that Harlan had pretended not to see. The surrogate, Lena, was due to arrive any minute. She had been their rock through the IVF cycles, the lawyer meetings, the joyful ultrasound where Jude had kissed Travis's temple and whispered, "We're gonna be okay, babe. We're building something real." Lena, with her no-nonsense bob and tattoo of a phoenix on her wrist, had signed away rights but promised to stay in their lives. A chosen aunt for Theo. Travis had texted her earlier, his thumbs shaking. "Harlan's bad. Come if you can." She was driving up from Tacoma, the wipers battling the downpour on her old Subaru. As the clock ticked past midnight, Theo finally quieted in Harlan's arms, his tiny chest rising and falling in exhausted sleep. Travis watched, a knot of emotions coiling tighter. Resentment, pity, a fragile thread of understanding. Harlan's eyes met his, holding steady for the first time. "I owe you an apology, son," the old man said, the word son landing like a stone in still water. "For everything." Travis opened his mouth to respond, but headlights sliced through the curtains, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the lamplight. Lena's car. The front door creaked open moments later, rain dripping from her coat as she stepped in, her face paling at the sight of Harlan with the baby. "Travis? Oh God." She rushed forward, but stopped short, her eyes locking on something in Harlan's lap. A small, leather-bound journal, slipped from under the blanket, its pages yellowed and edges frayed. Theo stirred, a soft coo escaping as Lena knelt beside the chair. Harlan's hand trembled as he passed the journal to her, his breath ragged. "Read it, girl, before I can't." Lena's fingers brushed the cover, tracing the embossed initials, HW, and she glanced at Travis, her expression a mirror of his confusion. She flipped it open, her lips moving silently at first, then aloud, her voice breaking on the first line. "Dearest Jude, if you're reading this, it means I've waited too long to say the words aloud." The world narrowed to that journal, the rain a distant roar. Travis's pulse thundered in his ears as Lena read on, Harlan's confession spilling out like blood from a long-sealed wound. It wasn't just an apology. It was a revelation, a hidden life etched in ink, of a young Harlan in the 1960s, loving a man named Tommy in the shadowed alleys of post-war Seattle, only to bury it under layers of denial and a marriage of convenience. The love letters, the stolen nights, the heartbreak when Tommy shipped out to Vietnam and never came back. Harlan had chosen silence, built walls around his heart, and in doing so wounded everyone who came after, his wife, Jude, and now, by extension, Travis and Theo. Lena's voice faltered, tears blurring the pages. He was like us, Travis. All this time. Theo whimpered again, but this time, it was a sound of comfort, as if the baby's cries had been a siren's call, drawing this truth to the surface. Harlan reached for Travis's hand, his grip weak but earnest. "I was afraid, son, afraid of losing everything, but watching you too. With him," he nodded at Theo. "It showed me what I threw away." Travis's vision swam, the weight of years crashing down. He thought of Jude's quiet strength, the way he'd bridged the gap with his father through forced Thanksgivings and awkward phone calls. "You broke him, Harlan?" Travis whispered, voice thick. "Not knowing if you accepted him. It ate at him." Harlan nodded, eyes closing as pain lanced through him. "I know, but maybe this makes it right. For the boy." The night stretched on, the three of them, Travis, Lena, Harlan, huddled in the dim glow, passing the journal like a sacred text. Theo slept through it all, his presence a bridge across the chasm. As dawn crept in, gray and unforgiving, Travis felt the first stirrings of something like forgiveness, not for Harlan's sake, but for his own, for Jude's, for the family they were still building from the ashes. Lena closed the book, her hand on Travis's shoulder. "What now?" she asked softly. Travis looked at Harlan, then at his son, the rain easing to a patter. "We keep going," he said, the words a vow. "We tell his story. All of it." Word count, 1023. Part 2. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains like a hesitant apology, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors scarred by decades of footsteps. Travis hadn't slept. Neither had Lena, who had curled up on the couch with Theo nestled against her. The baby's soft breaths a counterpoint to the wheeze of Harlan's labored ones from the armchair. The journal lay open on the coffee table, its pages a map of buried desires, each entry a pinprick of light in the darkness of Harlan's youth. Travis rose stiffly, his joints protesting the night's vigil, and padded to the kitchen. The house smelled of damp wood and stale coffee, remnants of a life Harlan had lived alone since his wife's passing a decade ago. He filled the percolator, the ritual grounding him as memories flooded in, Jude's voice in his ear, teasing about Harlan's legendary stubbornness. "Babe, Dad's like one of those old sequoias, rooted deep, but hollow inside if you look close." Travis had laughed then, pressing a kiss to Jude's neck in their sun-dappled kitchen, the future stretching out like the Puget Sound on a clear day. Now, the coffee brewed with a gurgle that seemed too loud in the silence. He poured 3 mugs, black for Harlan, cream for Lena, and a splash of almond milk for himself, a habit Jude had mocked but adopted. Carrying them back, he found Lena awake, her eyes red-rimmed but steady. "How's he doing?" she whispered, nodding toward Harlan, who stirred at the sound. "Same as always," Travis replied, handing her the mug. Harlan's eyes fluttered open, focusing on the steam rising from the cup Travis extended. "You always did make it strong," the old man croaked, accepting it with a nod that passed for gratitude. Theo fussed in Lena's arms, and she shifted him to Travis, the transfer seamless, like they had rehearsed it 100 times in the delivery room. As they sipped in companionable quiet, the journal seemed to pulse with untold stories. Lena had skimmed ahead last night, her gasps punctuating the revelations. Harlan's enlistment in the Navy not just for duty, but to escape the pull of Tommy's memory. The letters he'd burned in a fit of rage after his first date with Jude's mother, Evelyn, a kind librarian who deserved better than his half-heart. He loved her in his way, Lena had said, voice hushed. But it was never whole. He writes about feeling like a shadow, always chasing light he couldn't touch. Travis traced the spine of the book, his finger lingering on a faded photograph tucked between pages. A young Harlan, maybe 22, arms slung around a broad-shouldered man with a sailor's grin, both in crisp whites against a backdrop of choppy waves. Tommy. The resemblance to Jude was uncanny. The same tilt to the smile, the same defiant spark in the eyes. Did he ever tell Jude? Travis asked, directing the question to Harlan, who set his mug down with a clink. No, Harlan admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Thought it would complicate things, make him question his own path. He coughed, a wet rattle that made Travis wince. Lena stood, fetching a glass of water from the side table, her movements efficient, maternal in a way that belied her child-free life. She had chosen surrogacy for them out of fierce loyalty, a queer family of her own making after her divorce from a man who couldn't handle her bisexuality. Stories like this, she said, helping Harlan sip. They don't stay buried forever. They cry out, just like Theo did. The mention of the baby drew their eyes to him, now gnawing on Travis's thumb with gummy determination. Last night's cries felt like a lifetime ago, a catalyst that had unearthed this Pandora's box. Travis rocked Theo absently, his mind drifting to the early days with Jude. They had met at a queer architecture mixer in Pioneer Square, Jude sketching feverishly on a napkin while Travis, a freelance photographer capturing the city's hidden corners, snapped candids of the crowd. You're framing me wrong, Jude had said, snatching the camera with a wink. Let me show you how it's done. By closing time, they were tangled in a booth, knees brushing under the table, the spark igniting something Travis hadn't known he craved, stability wrapped in wild creativity. Their life together had been a montage of rainy weekends in bed, Jude's blueprints scattered like confetti. Hikes along the Hoh rainforest where they dream aloud about adopting, about legacy beyond blood. The surrogacy decision came after a year of talks, Lena emerging as the perfect fit, smart, sassy, unapologetically herself. I'll carry your kid, she'd said over tacos at a taqueria in Georgetown. But only if you promise not to name him after some pretentious poet. Theo, short for Theodore, after Jude's favorite uncle, had been their compromise, a name solid as the evergreens lining the sound. But Harlan's shadow had loomed even then. Jude's calls home grew shorter, laced with disappointment. He asked if we were serious about the baby, like it's a phase. Travis had held him through those nights, tracing the tattoos on Jude's back, anchors and compasses, symbols of navigation through stormy seas. Now, in this house that echoed with absence, Travis wondered if Jude had sensed the parallel lives, the unspoken kinship between father and son. The day unfolded in fragments. Lena drove to the pharmacy for Harlan's meds, leaving Travis to change Theo and heat a bottle. Harlan watched from his chair, silent at first, then venturing questions, halting, like a man learning a foreign tongue. Does he sleep through yet? Travis chuckled despite himself, the sound rusty. Not even close. Jude used to sing him those old folk tunes. Badly. Harlan's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. Evelyn did that. Lullabies from her Irish side. Jude must have picked it up. By afternoon, the rain had cleared to a misty drizzle, and Travis bundled Theo for a walk in the overgrown backyard, Harlan insisting on joining them in his wheelchair. The garden was a tangle of rhododendrons and ferns, wild from neglect, but alive with the buzz of late summer bees. As Travis pushed the chair along the flagstone path, Harlan spoke of Tommy, halting tales of Pacific ports, stolen kisses under stars that felt closer than home. He had this laugh, Harlan said, eyes distant, made you believe in second chances. Theo babbled from his carrier, reaching for a low-hanging leaf, and Travis felt the stirrings of connection, fragile as spider silk. Back inside, Lena returned with groceries, her arms laden with fresh salmon and greens. For strength, she declared, unpacking with purpose. Dinner was a quiet affair at the scarred oak table, Theo in his high chair smearing pureed peas, the adults picking at their plates while the journal lay between them like an uninvited guest. That evening, as Theo's bedtime routine began, bath, story, the rocking chair creak. Lena pulled Travis aside in the hallway. Harlan asked me to read more to him. Alone. Her eyes searched his. You okay with that? Travis nodded, throat tight. Trust was a muscle atrophied by loss, but Lena had earned it tenfold. As he sang Jude's off-key lullaby to Theo, the words weaving through the house, he heard murmurs from the living room. Lena's steady voice, Harlan's interjections, a dialogue bridging decades. Sleep came fitfully, dreams tangled with faces. Jude's grin, Tommy's ghost, Harlan's lined regret. In the dead of night, Theo woke crying again. Not the frantic wail of before, but a plaintive mule. Travis lifted him, padding downstairs to find Harlan awake, the journal clutched like a talisman. Can't sleep either? The old man asked. Travis shook his head, settling beside him. Theo quieted against his shoulder, and in that shared silence, Travis began to see the shape of forgiveness. Not absolution, but release. The world hadn't stopped turning after all. It had merely paused, waiting for truths to catch up. The second day dawned with a deceptive clarity, the sun piercing the clouds like a spotlight on a stage set for reckoning. Travis woke to the smell of bacon frying, Lena at the stove in borrowed sweatpants, her hair tied back with a scrunchie from Jude's old drawer. Figured we could use some grease, she said, flipping strips with a spatula, her smile forced but genuine. Theo was in his playpen, stacking blocks with chubby determination, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around him. Harlan was up too, shaved and in a fresh button-down, the effort evident in his pallor. Smells like Evelyn's Sundays, he commented from the table, accepting a plate with a murmur of thanks. Travis joined them, the normalcy of the meal a balm on raw nerves. Conversation flowed in fits, Lena recounting her drive up, the traffic snarl near the floating bridge, Travis mentioning a photo gig he'd postponed, capturing weddings in the San Juans. But the journal hovered, its presence a magnetic pull. After breakfast, with Theo down for a nap, they gathered in the sunroom, a glassed-in nook overlooking the bay where ferries cut white wakes. Harlan took the journal from Lena, his hands steadier than yesterday. I want you both to hear the rest, he said, clearing his throat. No more hiding. His voice, though weak, carried the cadence of a storyteller long silenced, and as he read, aloud for the first time, Travis leaned forward, drawn into the rhythm of a life parallel to his own. It started with the war's end, 1945, Harlan 19 and adrift in a Seattle shipyard, welding hulls for fishing boats that smelled of salt and promise. Tommy Riley, fresh from boot camp, with freckles across his nose and a brogue softened by Ellis Island, had clapped him on the back one lunch break. You weld like you're fighting demons, Whitaker. What began as banter over cigarettes evolved into midnight shifts extended by shared flasks, then touches lingering too long on shoulders, excuses to linger in the dim boiler rooms. Harlan's words painted vivid strokes. The thrill of Tommy's hand in his under the pier, the terror of discovery in an era where love like theirs was whispered as sin. We called it the Bend, Harlan read from an entry dated 1947. That curve in the road where the world narrows to just us, no judgments, no tomorrows. Travis's chest tightened. He knew that Bend, the hidden coves along Alki Beach where he and Jude had parked Jude's truck, fogged windows shielding their urgency, the city lights blurring into stars. Lena listened rapt, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. When Harlan reached the parting, the letter from the draft board, Tommy's enlistment party where they shared a last, desperate kiss behind the tavern. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks. He wrote me from Pusan, Harlan continued, voice thickening, said he'd come back, build us a cabin up in the Cascades, away from eyes. But the casualty list in 52 had dashed that dream, Tommy's name etched in cold print, leaving Harlan to enlist himself, fleeing grief into the uniformity of ranks. The reading paused for Harlan's cough, Lena fetching tissues and water. Travis stood, pacing to the window, the bay a mosaic of blue and gray. He thought of Jude's own hidden bends, the way he'd flinch at Harlan's voice on speakerphone, masking vulnerability with jokes. Your dad ever talk about the war? Travis had asked once, post-love-making, sheets tangled around their legs. Jude had shrugged, tracing Travis's collarbone. Grandpa stories, mostly. said it changed men, made 'em hard. Now, Travis saw the hardness for what it was. Armor over a wound that never scarred. Afternoon brought a visitor, Pastor Ellis from the Lutheran church down the block, a silver-haired woman with a shepherd's crook cane and eyes that missed nothing. She'd been Harlan's sounding board in recent months, dropping by with soups and scriptures. "Heard you had family in," she said, hugging Lena briskly, her gaze lingering on the journal. Harlan waved her to a seat, and over tea, the story spilled further, Pastor Ellis nodding like she'd long suspected the undercurrents. "You're brave, Harlan," she said softly, when he confessed the marriage to Evelyn. A union of convenience, her quiet acceptance buying him years of companionship without the fire of passion. "She knew," he admitted, eyes downcast. "Never asked, but knew. Gave me Jude as a gift. Said he had my fight but her heart." The pastor reached for his hand. "And now, passing that torch to Theo. It's redemption, plain as the grace we preach." As she left, promising to return with lemon bars, the weight in the room lightened fractionally. Lena suggested a drive to Discovery Park, where the forest met the shore, a place Jude loved for its wild edges. Travis bundled Theo, and they loaded Harlan's chair into the van's lift, the outing a tentative step toward normalcy. The park paths were muddy from the rain, scents of pine and ocean salt filling the air. Theo rode in a backpack carrier, pointing at crows with gleeful shrieks, while Lena pushed Harlan, chatting about her graphic design work, posters for Pride events, bold colors against erasure. Travis walked ahead, camera in hand. A Leica Jude had gifted him, its leather worn smooth. He snapped frames, Lena laughing as Harlan quipped about seagulls being God's vacuum cleaners. Theo's tiny hand on Travis's cheek, smeared with trail dust. But one shot caught him unawares. Harlan gazing at the sound, profile etched against the horizon. A man unburdened for the first time. Developing it later would reveal the peace in his eyes. But now, Travis felt it viscerally, a thaw in the ice around his heart. Back home, dinner was Lena's improvised chowder, thick with clams from the market. Theo gummed soft chunks, his earlier nap making him cranky, cries bubbling up as bedtime neared. This time, Harlan volunteered to help, his voice croaking an old sea shanty Tommy had taught him. Low and rumbling, the melody weaving through the house like smoke. Theo quieted midway, eyelids drooping, and Travis watched from the doorway, a pang of what-ifs twisting inside. What if Harlan had shared this sooner? What if Jude had known his father's hidden song? Night fell with stories around the hearth. Lena sharing her coming out at 20, the relief of queer bars in college. Travis recounting his first camera, capturing a drag show in the U District that opened his eyes to identity spectrum. Harlan listened, then added his piece. A furtive dance hall in 48. Men in suits swaying to Billie Holiday under dim chandeliers. Felt like home. For a night. The admissions built a bridge, tentative but spanning the gorge. As Travis lay in the guest room, Theo's monitor humming softly, he pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos of Jude. Grinning at Theo's birth, his face alight with wonder. Texting Lena in the next room. This is what he wanted. Healing. Her reply pinged back. It's what we all need. Keep going. Sleep claimed him then, dreams softer, laced with Jude's laughter echoing over waves. But dawn brought a shadow. A call from the hospice nurse, adjusting Harlan's meds, the clock ticking louder. Travis rose to the sound of Theo's coos, the day stretching ahead like an uncharted path. Full of bends, but no longer walked alone. By midweek, the house in Queen and had transformed from mausoleum to cocoon, its walls absorbing confessions like rain into parched earth. Travis marked time by Theo's routines, the dawn bottle, the midday waddle across the rug, the evening baths scented with lavender from Lena's kit. Harlan's decline was subtle but inexorable. Longer naps, shallower breaths. Yet his eyes held a new clarity, as if unburdening had bought him borrowed hours. Lena extended her stay, calling in favors from her freelance clients, her presence a steady anchor. She and Travis fell into an easy partnership, trading shifts with Theo, cooking from the pantry's sparse offerings. Pasta with pesto from wilted basil, eggs scrambled with whatever cheese lingered. Evenings, they reconvened with the journal, Harlan doling out entries like rations, each one peeling back another layer of his compartmentalized life. One afternoon, as thunder rumbled distant over the Olympics, Harlan read of the breaking point. 1972, Jude 12 and questioning his own crushes on the baseball team, Harlan catching him with a dog-eared copy of The Frontrunner hidden under his bed. I panicked, Harlan confessed, voice raw. Told him it was trash, phases boys outgrow. But inside, I was screaming. Don't make my mistakes, son. Don't hide. The irony stung, a betrayal doubled back on itself. Travis gripped the armrest, memories surging. Jude at 25, confessing his fears over beers at Elliot's Oyster House. Dad thinks it's a choice like picking a tie. What if he never gets it? Lena, ever the mediator, steered them to lighter waters, suggesting they sort through Harlan's attic. Boxes of Evelyn's linens, Jude's childhood drawings, relics gathering dust. Theo strapped to Travis's chest. They climbed the pull-down stairs, the air thick with mothballs and memory. Amid the detritus, they unearthed a tin of letters, tied with twine. Not from Tommy, but to him, unsent missives Harlan had penned in the quiet of night watches. Burned most, he admitted later, wheelchair-bound at the base of the ladder. These, I couldn't. Travis read one aloud by flashlight, the attic's gloom amplifying the words. Tommy, the days stretch without your shadow. Seattle rains like tears I can't shed. Come back or send word. I'm half a man in waiting. The sentiment echoed his own unsent texts to Jude, typed in grief's fog and deleted before dawn. Lena found a sketchbook, Jude's, from architecture school, filled with designs for eco-homes. Curved roofs like waves, interiors open to light. One page bore a note in the margin. For Dad. May it bend like he won't. Tears pricked as Travis traced the lines, Theo's fingers smudging the paper. Downstairs, they shared the finds over sandwiches, Harlan's laughter. A rare bark of sound. At a doodle of him as a cartoon captain, peg-legged and fierce. Boy had talent. Like his ma. The moment cracked open space for questions Travis had bottled. Why the distance, Harlan? After Jude came out. The old man sighed. Gaze on the middle distance. Feared he'd end up like me. Loving in shadows. Wanted better. But words failed. Betrayal simmered beneath. Not just Harlan's silence, but the years it stole. Thanksgivings tense with subtext. Christmases where Jude's gifts went unacknowledged. Travis voiced it gently. It hurt him. Made him doubt his worth. Harlan nodded, chin quivering. Knew that. Hoped time would mend. Lena bridged again, pulling out her phone for a playlist. Jude's favorites, folk rock anthems from the aughts. As Ho Hey by the Lumineers filled the room, Theo clapped along, and Harlan tapped his foot, the music a conduit for what words couldn't touch. That night, conflict brewed unbidden. A knock at the door revealed Harlan's sister, Aunt Maeve, flown in from Portland. Steel-haired, sharp-tongued, the family enforcer. She'd heard whispers from Pastor Ellis, arrived with a casserole and suspicions. What's this about old diaries, Harlan? Stirring ghosts. Her eyes raked over Travis and Lena, the queer tableau in her brother's den. Harlan bristled, clutching the journal. Truth, Maeve. Overdue. Dinner turned interrogatory. Maeve probing. This boy's father, Jude's partner? Decent sort. Travis held Theo closer, replying evenly. Loved him fiercely. Still do. The air crackled, Maeve's conservatism clashing like flint. Harlan, you've gone soft in the head. Digging up scandals, Tommy? That was a boy's folly. Buried for reason. Harlan's face hardened, the fighter emerging. Folly? It was my heart, sister. And Jude's too. Same blood, same fight. Maeve recoiled, glancing at Travis as if seeing him anew. Lena diffused with wine and wit, steering to neutral ground. Family recipes, Maeve's grandkids. But undercurrents ran deep, the betrayal fresh. Harlan's secret not just his, but a family fault line. Maeve stayed the night in the spare room, tension lingering like smoke. Travis walked the block after Theo's bedtime. Seattle's neon haze a comfort, streetlights pooling gold on wet pavement. He texted a friend from Jude's circle, Miles, a barista with a poet's soul, for advice. Family drama. Revelations. Feel like I'm betraying Jude by staying. Miles replied swift, or honoring him. Love's not clean, man. It's the mess. Back home, he found Lena on the porch, smoking a rare cigarette. She's old school, she said of Maeve. But seeds planted. Give it time. Dawn brought uneasy truce. Maeve softened over coffee, admitting her own regrets. A brother lost to AIDS in the 80s. Silence her shield. We all hide, don't we? They parted with a hug, her promise to return sans judgment. The day cleared, sun warming the garden, and Travis took Theo to the park, swings creaking under tiny swings. Harlan watched from the window, waving feebly. Lena captured it on her phone. Our village growing. As evening fell, Theo's cries returned. Not inconsolable, but insistent, drawing them together. Harlan held him, singing that shanty again, and Travis joined, harmonies rough but true. In the notes, he heard Jude's echo, the romance of their life a thread unbroken. Betrayal's sting dulled to ache, replaced by the slow bloom of understanding. Love, in all its bends, demands witness. Yet, as night deepened, Travis found a new entry in the journal, Harlan's fresh script. To Travis, tell Theo his granddad was brave in the end. And sorry for the shadows I cast. Tears fell then, hot and unbidden, the world tilting toward grace. The hospice nurse arrived on Friday with a quiet efficiency, her kit unpacked on the kitchen table like instruments for an orchestra of mercy. Pains managed, she told Travis, adjusting Harlan's drip. But we're talking days, maybe a week. The words landed soft, expected, yet they hollowed the room. Lena took Theo for a stroll to the bakery, returning with croissants and the scent of vanilla. Her arm linked through Travis's as they watched the nurse leave. Harlan slept through it, journal on his chest like a shield. Travis spent the morning in the garage, Jude's old toolbox a time capsule. Wrenches etched with coffee stains, sketches pinned to corkboard for a treehouse never built. He oiled the hinges of a rocking horse, half-finished, its paint chipped but whimsical. A gift Jude had planned for Theo's first birthday. Dust motes danced in sunbeams as Travis worked, sweat beading on his brow, the rhythm meditative. Memories intruded. Jude's hands over his, guiding a hammer strike, their laughter echoing off concrete walls. We're makers, Eli, building from scratch. Lena found him there at lunch, Theo on her hip gnawing a teething ring. Harlan's awake. Wants you. They ate in the sunroom, soup from a can, thickened with stories. Harlan, propped on pillows, delved deeper into the journal's coda. His post-Tommy drift, affairs fleeting as Seattle fog. A dockworker in 55, a professor in the 60s, each ending in Dawn's regret. Never let it root, he said, eyes on Travis. Feared it'd consume, like it did Tommy's memory. The confession hung, a mirror to Travis's own fears post-Jude. Dates dodged, nights alone with takeout and Theo's gurgles. Love a specter too tender to touch. Afternoon brought a storm, wind whipping the bay into froth, power flickering. They gathered by candlelight when it went out, Theo fascinated by the flames in the hearth. Harlan recounted Evelyn's strength, her quiet queerness, perhaps, in bridge clubs where women lingered over gin. She saw through me, he mused, chose kindness over questions. Lena shared her surrogate journal, snippets of ultrasounds and cravings, the bond forged in waiting rooms. Carrying Theo felt like holding your future, she told Travis, hand on his knee. Jude's texts. Tell him we love him already. God, I miss that man. As thunder rolled, conflict crested unannounced. A letter from Harlan's lawyer, slipped under the door, estate papers, the house willed to Jude's heir. But caveats tangled in Maeve's influence, whispers of contest. She thinks it's scandal's taint, Harlan growled, crumpling the page. Travis's temper flared, betrayal's echo sharp. After all this, she wants to erase him, us. Lena mediated, phone in hand to the attorney, her voice steel. We'll fight clean. For Theo. The storm mirrored their turmoil, rain lashing windows. But in the fray, bonds tightened. Harlan's hand on Travis's shoulder, a silent pact. Nightfall calmed the skies, stars pricking through clouds. Travis bathed Theo by lantern light, bubbles iridescent, the baby's laughter a tonic. Tucking him in, he whispered Jude's mantra, dream big, kiddo. Bend toward the light. Downstairs, Harlan waited, journal open to a blank page. Your turn, he rasped. Write it down what Jude meant. Travis hesitated, pen heavy, then flowed. Fragments of their love. First fight over burnt toast, making up under Christmas lights. The IVF needles pinch, Jude's vow. We're in this tide or no. Harlan listened as Travis read, tears carving channels in his stubble. Lena joined, her edition a poem, odes to Theo's toes, to resilience in rain. The act wove them closer, a tapestry of voices. But sleep evaded Travis, the lawyer's letter a thorn. He slipped outside, porch creaking underfoot, the city humming distant. Memories cascaded. Jude's proposal on a fairy deck, ring simple silver, words profound. Marry me, Eli. Let's make the Benz our home. Vows exchanged in a backyard ceremony. Lena officiating, Harlan absent but Jude's toast including him. To fathers flawed and fierce, Dawn crept with resolve. Over oatmeal they planned, Travis contacting Miles for legal intros, Lena scouting realtors for the house's future. Harlan, brighter-eyed, requested a drive to Golden Gardens, the beach where he'd met Tommy under a harvest moon. The outing was arduous. Chair through sand, Theo and carrier, but magical. Waves lapping, kites soaring, Harlan's tales of bonfires and bare feet. Here, he said, pressing a shell into Travis's palm, ridged and worn. For the boy, remind him shells hold the sea's secrets. Back home, exhaustion claimed Harlan early, his sleep deep. Travis and Lena debriefed on the couch, wine loosening tongues. This us, it's what Jude built, she said, clinking glasses. A family that folds in the cracks. Intimacy stirred, not romantic but profound. A brush of hands, shared silence pregnant with possibility. Travis leaned in, forehead to hers. Thank you, for carrying him, for staying. She smiled, fierce. Wouldn't miss the Benz. Theo's midnight cry pulled Travis up, but this time, Harlan stirred too, insisting on holding him in the rocker. The shanty lulled, and as Theo drifted, Harlan whispered to Travis, "You're good for him, for all of us." The words mended something fractured, betrayal's scar fading to silver. In the quiet, Travis sketched a photo on his phone. Harlan and Theo, profiles aligned like echoes. The world spun on, but slower, richer, laced with the romance of redemption. Yet, as morning broke, a fever spiked in Harlan, the nurse's visit urgent. In the haze he gripped Travis's hand. "Tell Maeve, forgive." The plea hung, a climax deferred, emotions cresting like the tide they all chased. The weekend blurred into a vigil, time elastic as taffy, hours stretching in Harlan's bedside watches, minutes vanishing in Theo's demands. The nurse upped the morphine, the room heavy with the beep of monitors borrowed from hospice. Lena handled calls, Maeve en route, Miles dispatching a lawyer friend, while Travis anchored the chaos, Theo's carrier a constant on his back, the baby's presence a talisman against despair. Sunday noon, Harlan rallied, color returning like a false spring. "Read to me," he demanded, journal in lap. Travis obliged, voice steady through entries of later years. Harlan's volunteer stints at the VFW, mentoring vets with ghosts of their own. Quiet donations to Seattle Pride, anonymous as midnight. "Saw you two march once," he admitted, eyes twinkling. Jude's sign, love wins, proud as punch. The revelation landed like sunlight after eclipse, rewriting histories. Travis pictured it. 2015, rainbows flooding streets, Jude's whoop lost in the crowd, Harlan watching from afar, heart swelling in silence. Lena captured moments on film, her phone a digital scrapbook. Theo's first clap for Harlan's tales, the old man's finger tracing the baby's palm. "Creases like maps," Harlan mused, "lead to adventures." They picnicked in the sunroom, blankets fort-like, Theo smearing avocado on chins. Laughter bubbled, genuine, a counter to the shadow lengthening. But climax crashed Monday Eve. Maeve's arrival, casserole in tow, her face a stormfront. The lawyer's prelim house to Theo with trusts for education ignited her. "Scandal or no, blood's thicker," she snapped in the kitchen, voice slicing. "Harlan's muddling his wits with this fairy tale." Travis, chopping carrots for stew, slammed the knife down. "Fairy tale? This is life, Maeve. Yours too, if you'd look." Theo wailed from the playpen, sensing the rift, his cries a echo of that first night. Harlan wheeled in, summoned by noise, face ashen but resolute. Enough, sister. The boy's my legacy, Jude's, Travis's. You contest, you lose us all. Maeve faltered, eyes flicking to the journal on the counter. Its spine cracked open. Lena, arms crossed, added Steele. We've read it, Maeve. Tommy, the nights, the regrets. It's not shame, it's human. The air crackled, betrayal's full bloom. Maeve's own secret spilling in defense. Her affair with a woman in the 70s, ended by fear, Harlan her sole confidant. You judged me then, she whispered. Now this. The confession shattered the standoff. Tears mingling with rain pattering renewed. Harlan extended a hand. We both hid, Maeve. Time to stand in light. She took it, shoulders slumping. The family not retied looser, stronger. Apologies flowed, halting raw. Over stew that night, Theo passed hand to hand, his gurgles sealing peace. Tuesday brought calm, Harlan lucid, requesting a family portrait. Travis set up lights in the living room, his photographer's eye framing them. Maeve beside her brother, Lena cradling Theo, Travis behind the camera, heart full. The shutter clicked, capturing not poses but presence. The bends navigated, loves acknowledged. Prince promised for later, the session dissolved into stories. Maeve's Portland walks, Lena's tattoo tales, Travis sharing Jude's blueprint dreams. As dusk fell, Harlan weakened, breath shallow. They gathered close, journal read to its end. Final entry, penned days prior. To my family, seen and unseen. Love bends but doesn't break. Carry it forward. Theo, sensing shift, fussed softly, his tiny hand on Harlan's chest. The old man smiled, eyes on Travis. You're the father Jude chose. Good man. Words failed then. Touch sufficed. Hands linked, a circle unbroken. Midnight claimed him gently, monitors flatlining to silence. Travis held Theo through the tears, Lena's arm around them, Maeve's sobs muffled in Kleenex. Dawn broke clear, the bay a mirror of sky. Funeral plans wove through grief. Simple at the church with Harlan's shanty sung by all. Maeve conceded the will, papers signed in quiet accord. Weeks later, back in Capitol Hill, Travis unpacked the shell from Golden Gardens, placing it on Theo's shelf beside Jude's photo. Lena visited weekly. Their bond deepened. Aunt, ally, perhaps more in times unfolding. Miles hosted a memorial hike, toasts to Harlan and Jude under evergreens. Travis dated tentatively. A carpenter named Finn, easy smiles over coffee. But Jude's memory lingered, romantic and revered, a foundation not replaced. Theo's first steps came on a sunny afternoon, toward Travis's open arms, cries turned to triumphs. In that moment, the world spun true, compassion's wheel, freedom's arc, identity's quiet roar. Harlan's truths had stopped time briefly, but in restarting, gifted grace. Love, in all its shadowed bends, leads home.